Today's guest once turned a coffee break into a photo studio. Rob Eyler is the CEO and founder of Capturely, the company that gives you studio-quality headshots on your phone in about 10 minutes with delivery in roughly 24 hours. We're talking how they've navigated change in the past 5 years and will navigate change for the future in a rapidly changing industry. Enjoy the conversation. You're listening to Working Forward, a future of work-focused podcast from People Forward Network. These episodes pave the road ahead, helping us confidently step into the future as a leader who moves people forward. After all, the best way to predict the future is to create it. Let's go. All right, here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Working Forward, your Future of Work podcast on the People Forward Network. We've got an incredible episode for you today with someone, coincidentally, who not only is an expert in the future of work in terms of how he's leading his company, but he also happens to be right here, kind of in my backyard here in Indianapolis, which is always fun to do. Rob Eyler, the CEO and co-founder of Capturely. Rob, thanks for being with us today, bud.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So we're going to have some fun today talking about the future of work through the lens of a CEO and co-founder, because you have been leading and managing through a lot of change. We're going to get to that stuff later, but to kick things off, you've got an incredible story, and so does Capturely in terms of the evolution and journey from when it started to where Capturely is today. So let's kick things off to hear a little bit of your story and that of Capturely's.
Well, yeah, appreciate you having me on. So I grew up here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I was I was always a hard worker. I got a job at 15 with my buddies flipping Philly cheesesteaks. So I idolized my entrepreneurial father who had his own company, and so I always thought I'm going to work hard someday and I'm going to be an entrepreneur too. And so that led me to eventually going to college, getting a business degree, and then working for him in the family business. Spent 15 years doing that. And then afterwards, I knew I needed to kind of set my own pace and set my own way. So from there, I started some healthcare offices after I kind of had my own healthcare experiences. That's what leads us to do things is our own personal experiences. And then from there, I ended up when I sold that business, I was advising a company called the Headshot Truck. And it was actually started by a good friend of mine I've known since I was 14. He actually introduced me to my wife. And so I was kind of like the free advisor, good friends are. And I was helping him with some business decisions. And one of the business decisions was navigating Shark Tank. They were about to go on Shark Tank. They were on round like 8 of 9, ready to get on that. But unfortunately, the Headshot Truck is this cool concept of a mobile photo studio. And so kind of in 2014, Headshot Trucks got really food trucks got really popular. And so some photographers in LA and him got together and they thought, wouldn't it be cool if we just had a mobile photo studio? So instead of people coming to us to get professional imagery done, why not go to them? And they actually thought they were going to do it for actors. But what they learned is that it became the company picture mobile. Lots of large companies, CBS and NBC and Fox, started hiring them to drive the truck onto the lot and kind of round robin executives and do executive portraits through this mobile photo studio. And so they started to see some really good growth in LA. And they're like, hey, we want to scale to all these markets. And of course, since they're in LA, they're actors, they're entertainers, they're business people. Of course, they're going to try to go on Shark Tank. And so they were getting really close to going on Shark Tank. But the thing that I kept trying to tell them about is like, hey man, this is not a good business to scale. Like it works really well in LA and Southern California. But I don't think you're going to get the outcome on Shark Tank that you're going to want. And if you think about it, and so they didn't go on Shark Tank, but they didn't also take my advice. And so they actually, they got another truck and they put one in Atlanta and then they put one in New York City. And they quickly learned that standing outside of a truck in New York City in February, and then getting on there, after taking off your coat and getting rid of the snow, or standing outside of a truck in August in Atlanta where you're melting your face off and you're red, like not a great headshot experience. And so while the 2U made a lot of sense, it just wasn't a great model. And so, but what was really good is they had large enterprises that wanted consistency at scale. It's really hard for bigger businesses to get like a consistent product from location to location to location to serve employees. So whether you're in marketing where you kind of own the brand and look and feel of the business, or you're in HR, typically you would be kind of in charge of administrating like benefits and things like this, where if they're doing headshots, a lot of times that flies under benefits, is that they're looking for kind of that, I like to say, one throat to choke. They're looking for like one company that they can count on that can like remove the friction, because nobody's job is to be like the head of headshots, right? There's no director of headshots at any company. It's kind of like, who does this task kind of get dumped on? And so I said, if we can be that one throat to choke, make it really easy to administrate. And with the thing that this business really had going for it is 98% of all content creators are independent contractors. Photographers all kind of hang their own shingle. They're all the independent business owners. And I said, we simply need to partner with the right kind of people in the right kind of markets. We can create an independent network globally, but we can also vet them and make sure like everything can be completely consistent. And so him and I engineered this concept of Capturely. It was going to be a photography platform that deployed photographers specifically for headshots at scale. And so we did that in the fall of 2019. We launched Capturely. We kind of kept the headshot truck going because it had a lot of notoriety in the area. So it wasn't really worth like getting rid of it. It was a great lead gen magnet, if you will. But what ended up happening is many of the leads that came in for the headshot truck, they actually wanted experiences beyond LA. And so Capturely was that platform that allowed businesses to globally deploy photographers so they could get a consistent product. And that was kind of the beginning of Capturely in the fall of 19.
There's so many fascinating parts of that story to me as I filter it through my own experience. And I'm sure most listeners, and yourself included, Rob, you think about like my earliest experiences in terms of like a photo studio was family pictures. I'm sure almost everyone went through the concept of family pictures and had that experience. Ours was for our family. We were either going like, I think it was like to Sears. We're doing back in the day. We had a Sears in Logansport, Indiana, and go do it.
Yeah.
And here's what I remember about it, and I want to juxtapose this with the experience that you've created at Capturely, because it couldn't be any different in terms of the better experience that you've created. I don't remember anyone that I would talk to, whether it was a kid or adult, that enjoyed really family picture day. Like typically the moms would be like, "We're doing this." They'd be the ones who probably were the most excited. Like, we need to get these pictures and capture this moment. But most of my experience was typically like the kids are like, do we really have to do this? They've got to get bribed, with McDonald's, or we're going to go out to eat afterwards if you do a good job. And it just is really neat to see this part of what most of us experience, a core memory, a core part of our life, to see how it is evolving and transforming before our eyes compared to what our experience was to what our kids' experience now is. And now that you've created this concept of, there being a way to get professional headshots without having to actually go to a professional studio or be tethered to a physical location, as you're talking about. Like with the trucks previously, that was the first evolution of it was, hey, let's have mobile trucks in places. But then you find out, as you pointed out, nobody wants to be in Chicago outside without their coat waiting in line to hop in a truck. So to see the evolution now where you can do it from the comfort of your own home, whenever the time works best for you to get it done with someone on the team, it just is incredible how it's become digitized, how it's become asynchronous, how it's not tethered to a physical location, and how it's made for an overall better experience for people. And I would have to guess, I'd love to hear from you on this. It probably has democratized to a certain extent this concept of having a professional headshot that maybe in years past, a lot of people would have been like, oh, I don't know if I can afford that, or if I have the time, or do I want to, or is the experience going to be uncomfortable of going to a professional photographer to get this done?
Mm.
You really have democratized it and made it something that's a really simple everyday part of life that's accessible to everybody, haven't you?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when you look at the data, 70% of people don't like getting their picture taken. So you
Makes
see
sense.
like 30% of people are like, yeah, let's do it. Let's have fun. Let's photograph. But the other 70%, it's kind of like, I think of it a lot like when you have to go to the doctor and get a shot. Like nobody wants to go get a shot. But where you go, that's a great doctor, is when they can do the procedure quick, they keep it as painless as possible, and they make it as enjoyable and fun and light, bedside manner, all that are so important. And so with photography, it's the same thing. The personality, the feel, making sure people feel warm and invited, but making it like really convenient, making it super in and out, not making it a production, making it the least amount of a production possible is really what a vast majority of people want. They're not looking to spend an hour and a half in a studio, putting on different outfits. That's just not enjoyable for 99% of people. And also most people are not satisfied with the way they look. Everybody wishes they looked a little bit better, like a little bit thinner and a little bit this and a little bit that. And so not everybody's always comfortable in their skin. And so maybe that's a reason why as well. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to make a process that it's definitely a necessity. So people like having like a professional image because it's like the welcome mat for who we are online. If you think about it, you go to LinkedIn or almost any platform, Facebook, the first thing that you see is the person's photo and a name. And because we are visual creatures. So the first thing you look at, you're like, do I know Jason? Like, do I know that guy? Oh yeah, I ran into him at the grocery store. Like, and then they're going to look at whatever's in whatever your resume is. If it's in a professional setting, a dating profile, then they're going to look at like kind of who you are. So it's kind of that first, like, do we want to, is this person going to help me or hurt me? Like, that's like subconsciously in our caveman brain, right? We're thinking at that level subconsciously about like, do we want to get to know this person? And so whether it's for a job interview, whether it's dating, whether it's social, anything like that, that's what a photo means. And so for us, photo means it's really about creating connection. That's why I got excited about actually getting into this business, because I felt like what we could do is we could help people come across more confident, competent, trustworthy, and approachable. That was really the whole goal behind Capturely, because that's what brands are looking for. They're looking for their people to be a great representation of them. And so that was kind of the genesis of where we started. And the first 6 months with Capturely was amazing. The first 2 clients we signed were LinkedIn and Facebook. So LinkedIn, we were doing enterprise adoption events. So when LinkedIn would sell Navigator to another big enterprise like American Express, they would hire Capturely to come alongside the trainers, and the LinkedIn trainers would be teaching the Amex team, hey, here's how you use LinkedIn Navigator. But then we were in the corner doing headshots, so they all looked good. So, I mean, we weren't any more important than necessarily the caterer, right? We're just kind of part of the circus, but it was great to like have that gig because we were able to help LinkedIn wherever they needed nationally. Facebook, we were doing conferences and conventions. So in 2019, they were on the Mia Copa data privacy tour, right? Where they had that I think that firm in England that had, I guess briefed some data. And so it was kind of the I'm sorry tour. And so they created this headshot experience at these different conferences around the country, and we staffed that for them. And then I remember like the end of February, I was at one of those events, and we were all kind of standing there talking like, what's going to happen with this COVID thing? And then a month later, our business was zero. So it was quite the pivot. It was quite the turn of events.
Have you ever had a moment? So you started listing off, I mean, those are some big names, Facebook and LinkedIn that you're doing this with. Have you ever had like a celebrity moment? And maybe you don't have to share their name, but if there is someone that you could share the name where you're like, I can't believe we're actually doing this for this particular person. Did you ever have one of those pinch me moments to be like, I can't believe we're actually doing this headshot for this person right now?
We did. Ice Cube.
Ice Cube.
Cube.
Yeah, you're on a first name basis. Not even Ice, it's just Cube. I love that. So you got to tell us. Give us the details here.
Yeah. So it was we got called shortly after we launched virtual headshots. We got a phone call, and we didn't know who we were photographing to start with. It was just some agency in Hollywood, and they said we need photos for New Zealand visas. And we said, okay, so you need New Zealand visa photos. And they're like, we need New Zealand visa photos. And so we're like, okay. And they're like, but everybody's everywhere. And I don't know what to do. And this has to get done tomorrow, because people who kind of handlers of entertainment, people that are in the entertainment industry, man, God bless those folks. That's quite the circus that they're running. Just because everybody's everywhere and everybody's super important and everybody has to, and timing is hard. And so anyways, eventually we, they gave us, they told us where they wanted to go. We figured out what the requirements were for New Zealand, passport photos, visa photos. And then we said, great, we can do it. How many people? 10 people. And so then that's when they said, okay, so what it is this is for Ice Cube and for the people that are going to New Zealand on a concert tour with him. And we said, okay, great. And so we actually photographed Ice Cube right in his home.
That's incredible.
Yeah, yeah. So our director of production was his virtual photographer, and it was a great experience. It was like every other one, honestly. It's just like, hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. Okay, great. Let's get your picture. And they got his picture. So
That's awesome. So I got to ask this as a follow-up question. So on his passport, is that his name, Ice Cube?
honey, no, it's not. It's O'Shea Jackson. I think is his real name. You can look it up online. I did before, but it was yeah, it's like O'Shea Jackson Jr. I think is his name. I might be wrong though. So
Okay. I see these are the kind of questions that you get on this kind of podcast, Rob. The really important stuff. But no, all kidding aside, like seriously, I wonder that sometimes on people's passports. Like if you have a name like Ice Cube, is that what you have on there since you're a global icon and most everybody probably knows you? Or do you actually go with like your God-given name that you were given when you were born?
yeah, no, mommy didn't give him Ice Cube.
That's
I,
right.
I
That's
think that
right.
was from his days with Dr. Dre and Easy E. I think one of those guys probably helped him out there.
That's awesome. So going back to this conversation of I love how you laid out the evolution of the company Capturely and how you've transformed this whole concept of getting professional photos done. Completely transformed the industry. As you were giving a description of how that's unfolded and how you've been a leader in that area, I jotted down a few other industries that came to mind for me where all of us have probably experienced this and seen it unfold over time. One of those is kind of like Netflix. So this concept of like mobile convenience, different industries, the concept of streaming is one of them. You think about back in the day, Netflix when it actually was you were getting DVDs in the mail and you couldn't get your next DVDs that were in your queue until you sent the other ones back. And then they eventually became a full-blown streaming service. Same thing with Redbox. You used to see a Redbox like at McDonald's and stuff like that to pick up the actual physical copy. And just think how quickly things transformed there. It was like, nope, the easiest thing is to just have people pay for a subscription and digitally send it to them at their home when they can watch it anytime that they want to. So that's one industry I thought of. Another one that's become really popular is food service delivery. So, DoorDash, Grubhub, those kind of things. The concept, 15, 20 years ago of being able to get food from a restaurant and getting it delivered to you, your choices were Chinese restaurants and pizza restaurants, really, in terms of who would actually deliver. And now you can get virtually anything that you want delivered to you at your home. Another one, you think about Instacart, that now you can actually have people go shop and do your groceries and things for you. And almost all the major grocery chains now have their own version of Instacart, like the Kroger's of the world, where they'll deliver the groceries to your home. And I got one more that's kind of a cool one that I notice sometimes when I peek out my window of my office. My neighbors across the street, there is a mobile pet grooming van that they have come and do mobile pet grooming. And so their pets, their dogs kind of get like a spa day once every month or every 2 months. And they bring the pup out, to the little mobile grooming thing, and it gets a little spa day in there, getting a trim on the nails, trim on the fur, and stuff like that. I share all those to say, many times when we talk about change, I th I feel like sometimes things quickly become a new normal to us that we forget how much things have already changed to a certain extent because we start using these things. We start using DoorDash and we're like, "Oh, yeah, we've had DoorDash for a long time," and then you think about it and it's like, I don't know how old DoorDash is, but it can't be any more than probably 5 to 10 years old tops in terms of being able to get restaurant food delivered to your house that wasn't Chinese restaurants or pizza. And so this concept of convenience, of to your home, of mobile, there are going to be more industries, it seems, that'll get disrupted and reinvent themselves this way. And to bring it back to our conversation, I just think it's so wonderful that we get to hear from you today as a pioneer in the space of professional photography and how that has evolved to become a new way of democratizing this concept of getting headshots.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting where we are today but if I kind of go back in time to, the LinkedIn, Facebook, and then the COVID. So revenue went to zero, and I had really invested. I kind of went all in on this company. I was like, so personally and heavily invested in the company, and revenue was zero, like $500, right? And I have a $100,000 burn. So and up monthly, right? I'm trying to like, what am I gonna do? Because that's not gonna last that long. And so, um, I so the first things that sets in is panic, right? When your personal financial security and your kid's future and your wife's future and all that is it's like, oh, what am I gonna and there's just like that fear that just that 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 fear. And so, um, but where there is fear, I found faith, right? And and so a big part of my faith journey was that moment. And what's interesting is that I actually it was the beginning of it, but it because I still wanted to like figure this thing out. And the first 2 years after COVID were extremely difficult for this company. They were way more difficult looking back than they needed to be. Because if I would have stayed true to the roots of who we were always in the business, and you brought this up, of making photography more accessible, specifically headshots more accessible. Like that was the business. But when this thing, like when the bomb went off with COVID, business is zero. The whole world's kind of like, what are we doing, right? I was like, so I'm dealing with all this fear. So I'm like, well, you just have to work harder. And really, honestly, if I would have taken 2 months off and I would have just like focused more on myself and kind of that faith over fear and letting God speak and trying to figure out like, what are we really supposed to do here? And getting into more of a parasympathetic rest and digest state where where you can really function at optimum versus just functioning in that sympathetic fight or flight. I know I would have made a very different decision. So the decision I made, the wrong decision, was, well, the companies in the middle of the United States are more open than the companies we were working with, because we were working with the largest companies, technology based, biggest cities. Nobody's doing events. Nobody's in the office. Like there's no hope. They were the last ones to go into the office, right? And so, but the dentists, the chiropractors, the local businesses, the mom and pop places, they still needed production, but we couldn't sustain a company on 5 headshots. So what we did those 2 years, it was the most exhausting 2 years of my life, is we went from a headshot company and we developed product, because I thought, oh, product photography, right? Everybody's shipping on Amazon, online e-commerce. So then we added products to our what we were doing. So send us your product, we'll shoot it, we'll send it back. We added video. So we would deploy and half of our network, 3/4 of our network really weren't capable of it. So then we had to go out and we spent all this time finding other people who could do video. So we were trying to offer like a full suite of imagery, headshots, interior, exterior, like short videos, customer testimonials, B-roll. Oh, you have products, we'll do that too. So we were kind of doing almost any kind of commercial photography production task. And when I say videos, think of it more of like the light 1.5 to 2 minute videos, kind of the introduction videos of a business. And so not like really like high level production. And so we just spent a ton of time and effort in a space that it wasn't where we were destined to be. And here's the moral of the story. 5 months into the pandemic, it was in August, LinkedIn came back to us and they said, can you do virtual headshots? And my partner said that to me, and I'm like, how do you do a virtual? I don't know. Like but we didn't really listen to our customers like we should have, and really spent the time to like think through that. And so they planted a seed for sure, but it took way longer to germinate because we were too absorbed in ourselves and not enough in the gift that had been given to us, which was this idea. And so, and honestly, with my background, I would have been perfectly positioned because I used to be in higher ed, online education. And that's kind of what we did with Capturely, is we created courses that would vet photographers so that we knew that they were capable of the consistency we needed. So we created this kind of this online LMS platform that allowed us to vet folks. we could have done the exact same thing and had people take, like, we could have trained you how to take your own photo from home, and we could have stood up a product much, much quicker than what we did. But what's cool about it, you can't go back and change things. Because we could have immediately went to all those enterprises and said, hey, you can still do headshots and here's how you do it. And you have your people do a tutorial, upload the photo, we'll edit it, deliver it, life is good. And so I call that a DIY headshot, do your own headshot, right? But but that's not really what people ultimately want. People want make others do it for you. You order pizza because you want somebody to do it for you that like makes pizzas all day and they do a really good job. You go to, I have people put on the tires of my car because I don't want to try to put on my own tires, right? You have people mow your grass. So there's all the services that surround our lives, and they're there for a very good reason. And so we never abandoned that hope. We enrolled in the UCLA accelerator while we were doing kind of what we could do. And so two non-technical founders through duct tape, baling wire, and just like never letting go of the dream, we finally put together this virtual headshot where our photographer, through some technology that we white labeled, could actually meet up with you. They could spend 10 minutes and they could control your camera. So they could control the focal, the white balance, the contrast, and they would take your images. The images are then uploaded to the cloud where they're edited, color corrected, and then we deliver them a day later. We launched that in 20 December of 2023. We were beta testing it, but in February of 2024 was when we officially launched virtual headshots. And since then, it's been amazing because people love the make others do it for you. People don't want to go through a tutorial on how to like take your own headshot. If you want to be your own photographer, you already would be, right? So for the minority of people who buy the big DSLRs and run around and take amazing photos, like they like it. Everybody else, not so much. So we were able to finally evolve. So there was like a stage that we could have capitalized on this DIY. And we just missed it. And that's the point that I was making. But we did jump to the right stage, and we're so thankful to be there now where we have really made it extremely easy. So all you need to be is in a room with a window and have your phone on Wi-Fi, and you can get studio quality headshots in one day.
That's awesome. The saying that's going through my head as you're describing that is you grow through what you go through. And I think there's no better teacher than entrepreneurship. When you're an entrepreneur, you will make more mistakes and failures than successes, but those are essential to get to success. And it sounds like that particular lesson for you, I've gone through lots of lessons, still going through them every single day and things that I learned. But a good reminder from your story was you got to be obsessed with your customer. And sometimes it's really easy to be like, nope, this is our lane. This is what we're going to do. We have this idea of what we think we should do. And then sometimes that gold nugget is right there that your customers may be giving you. They may not have wrapped and packaged it for you, but they're putting a pain out there, or, it'd be great if we could ... kind of thing. But you have to be, I love you talk about the state of mind. You're not going to hear those things if you're living in scarcity mode, fear and anxiety and worry. And so kudos to you for, even though it felt like probably didn't even feel like you saw the walls starting to close in and you're like, what are we going to do? That you were able to get that moment of clarity to step back, clear your mind, get in a relaxed state, and start to really perceive and dial in on those things that were in front of you. And this was one where it was like, here we go. This is clearly something the market's telling us that we need, that we can figure out. And with a larger customer, LinkedIn, to be like, hey, we got something here. This is where we need to be focused on solving this problem. Because if we can solve this for LinkedIn, we know there's a lot of other places that need this problem solved too. So kudos to you. And I just wanted to reiterate that I think, it's a good reminder for all of us. It's easy to get fixated. It's easy to get stuck in certain types of routines. This is what we do, rinse and repeat. But in the future of work, things are constantly going to be changing. I'm sure most everyone listening to this episode is like, yes, I can feel the pace of change, whether it's things in your personal life, whether it's professional. There's just a lot of change going on. And one of the muscles that we all have to continue to develop that I think entrepreneurship really helps with is adaptation and being perceptive to those changes in the market and having an ear and your eyes open to what your customers are telling you. Now, that doesn't mean that you chase every single shiny object, right? You still have to be methodical. You have to be strategic about knowing when, how, and where to pivot, whether or not it makes sense for the business. But just as detrimental to chasing a shiny object is just rinse and repeat doing the things that you've always done. That's just as dangerous. And so adapting this adaptive mindset of trying to develop wisdom and really good discernment in understanding when it's time to pivot or when it's time to adapt and change is really important in these markets. And so kudos to you, Rob. Your team is lucky to have you leading through that, to have gotten on the other side.
Yeah, and the inches we need are all around us. I think Al Pacino said that on Any Given Sunday. Great motivational speech. And but we have to be in the right frame. If you're 2 minutes too fast or 2 minutes 2 seconds too fast, 2 seconds too slow, you're gonna miss the gap, using the football analogy that he did in that speech. And, I'll give you a great LinkedIn is no longer a client. So I just want to make sure, like, I don't want to like portray that they're currently a client, because they're not. We were too late. I was too focused on the here and now. I missed that gap to give them that DIY headshot. And who knows what that relationship would look like now, right? It could be amazing. But we had that moment. We held on to the dream. We listened to them. We eventually executed, but we executed too late. Doesn't mean but the good news is, I mean, we're not done. Our story is not over, right? We may have lost that game, but we stuck with it, and we're continuing to fight and move forward. And what's cool is, we've even been given such a much broader vision with the success of this at this point. We've onboarded 6 major health systems. United Healthcare just recently came on board. Neuralink, DoorDash, we just talked to Peloton yesterday. So there are a tremendous amount of very large names that are coming in every single month, that are very interested in what we're doing. 52% of companies who demo our service buy. So I literally got to just give away headshots to the right people, and getting them to actually, because it just saves so much headache of something that should be so orthodox and easy, that is not, like, trying to get everybody in one place one time to look beautiful at the right, it's kind of hard. So, and then since then, it has been, it's been a vision of, um, you know, 2 years ago, a partner of mine, as we started to have success, he was another local entrepreneur that had some technology that was way ahead of its time. And so it just getting it commercial right now didn't make a lot of sense. He's a PhD, digital image processing, AI. So he did his master's at Stanford and his PhD in Shanghai Jiaotong. He speaks fluent Chinese. He's actually a Carmel person, though. He's a local person, grew up here. But he looked at what we were doing, saw the clients, and he said, we can actually do some really cool things with AI with what you're doing. And so for us, AI is a table stakes thing, but we're not an AI generator. Like, that is like, we'll never be an AI generator. That's actually not hard to necessarily do technologically. What is important to us is authenticity. It's the human connection. We are very much we are HI plus AI, human intelligence plus artificial intelligence. And so, where we see the market going is, because we're the only company in the world that have 25,000 recorded headshot sessions that we've done with individuals. That is a treasure trove of data. That is a data moat that we have the ability to then model and create an agentic photography experience. Now, every person may not want an agentic photography experience. And what's cool about the way that we're developing the technology is they're always one click or one question away from a real human. We will continue to use our creatives to support the experience. If it's not working, it's like, get me a real photographer, and within a minute or two, boom, we'll have a real creative on there to help you through whatever piece of it that you need help with. And so we're about a year away from launching that agentic experience. We're really excited. We have a couple of PhDs, and so it's really neat the way that we're going to be able to introduce something new to the world. And it really has lit a huge creative fire within our business, And even our creatives are really excited about this, which that's difficult getting creatives excited about the AI because they're like, is this going to replace me? And so them understanding that no, it's not going to replace them at all. But it's going to allow us to serve more people and to the word you used earlier, truly democratize this, truly, give it away. So
That is so cool. So we're gonna get it internal here. We've been talking external in terms of the market, but you started heading the direction of, hey, this is how I'm leading and guiding our teams through change. So I want to get to that in just a moment. But before we get there, I gotta ask this question. You mentioned Neuralink. Is Musk going to be getting his headshot through Capturely?
I don't know. I would love that. That would be amazing. Um, you know, I feel like I want the agentic experience to be ready, but I don't think it'll ever be good enough for somebody with, his level of technical acumen.
Yeah.
But maybe, but who knows? Who knows what's in the cards? Actually, I have a friend that knows him fairly well, so maybe I've never said anything, so maybe I can try to call in a favor.
There you go. I dig that. So getting back to this concept of how you said, the creatives on your team, like getting them comfortable with the direction the company's headed, where you said, I love this moonshot. First agentic photographer. So not just AI generating images, but truly an AI agentic photographer. The first one in the world is that shot where in a year you're going to have that ready. Just walk us through, because to your point, you said the creatives are like, the first thought would be, is this going to replace my job? And the reason I want to hear you kind of walk through this is because extrapolating this outside of your specific industry, just to be abundantly clear in terms of what the data shows us, we have a lot of people that are really worried about their work, their jobs now, right? About displacement via artificial intelligence. As jobs reports, I know they've been on pause for a couple months. Hopefully those will be coming out again, but that there has been, an increase in the number of jobs displaced, and that the percentage that are being acknowledged due to AI, that it has also increased. Not to the level often of what's often sensationalized, but there has been an increase that hasn't been due to chance. That much we do know for sure. So just kind of walk us through, as a leader who's in a highly transformative industry, your company is at the very cutting edge of leading a lot of that transformation. We talked about what it meant in terms of going to market, like being customer facing and how to do those things. How has that, what does that look like internally as you lead your people through this change?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a couple of things, right? So how I've led my people, and then where do I see the market going? And I think where I see the market going helps me to lead my people. So there's two things here, right? There's vision, and then the second thing is communication. And actually, I'll start with vision. I think that makes more sense. So, and so I'm a non-technical founder. Um, but I am surrounded by some really amazing PhDs in this type of technology. One of them actually works on creating the algorithms that AI uses to do what it does. So they really have a very, very good understanding of artificial intelligence. And what I have learned is that AI is really good at left brain stuff. It's good at just doing routine, very, analytical doing things, right? But what it's not great at is right brain stuff. It's the creative. And one of the things that we've done, even as a society, is we have focused a lot, especially in like my lifetime, of getting doers, getting more doers and more doers and more doers out the door. And we specialize education very early on. And I was doing marketing classes in high school. Like I was all about specializing education personally. But really, what we're seeing is creatives are going to be king in the future. It's going, and which is neat because what it does is it gives you a space to be creative. That's the highest form of human consciousness. It's amazing. And my wife and I, we don't necessarily consider ourselves creators, but we are creative in our own right if we give ourselves an opportunity to be that. But when you've like been raised in a society where it's like it's about how fast you can do things and analytics and if then that, and not really in that creative space. So it's going to be neat to see the shift. I think there will be a big shift. I think it'll start in education. Um, but businesses will be more interested in having creative leaders and creative thinkers and creative managers, because it's not the easier or the mundane tasks are going to be delegated out. I see this, and we again as a team, a leadership team, and again this is with our technologists. And while AI does, there are certain things that are that you've heard out there that I would say yes, it does should be regulated, and it is a very powerful technology that we have got to get on top of as a species. But like any interest, like the evolution of the wheel, firearms, the industrial revolution, it just pushes us faster as a species. We are able to do more with less. I don't have to go hire 5 more people to be more productive with the things that I'm doing. And so that's really where how I've been able to lead, and how my team really, because it's my team, it's not just me, but how my team and I've been able to lead is to help them to understand how we see the technology, based on our understanding of how it works and what we see the future to be. Because I see a future for Capturely where we're going to become the Canva of photography. We want to democratize photography, and so we start with headshots. But right now we have clients like, not LinkedIn, but we have other big clients that are going, can you do real estate photos? Can you do like a quick video with my doctor? Can you shoot candids of my doctor at the nursing station? There's all these other production tasks that we're getting asked for. And the answer is we can do them via yourself, but we're not. We're gonna create an agentic photographer. We're gonna support that, but then we can move our creatives, our humans, up the complexity chain and say, okay, gang, we're now going to solve real estate photography. Let's go out there and let's do it. We're going to lead with them, build the data, create the agentic real estate experience, but continue to support it with humans, because there's always going to be edge cases, and AI is terrible at edge cases. It's terrible at edge cases. Humans are great at edge cases. So you're always going to need the humans to support it. And then eventually, the furthest out distance we see for Capturely is with that Canva of photography. It's not only having an experience where, Jason, your phone can help you create beautiful imagery, authentic imagery, but also you're always just like one click away from that creative consultation, from getting together with like a real creative that you can like bang ideas off of, bounce ideas off of, and ask questions to, and really, because that's the highest form of human expression. It's not just doing it better and fast. It's not just doing it faster. I don't even say better. It's just doing it faster. And that's what AI does. It allows us to do things faster. So that's the vision, right? And so if my team understands what I just said, then it's all about communication. Because in the absence of good communication, and I think other leaders have probably experienced this, people make up stories. And I have a worse issue than most. I have creatives. So they're really good at making up stories. And it's bit me. It's bit me hard. Recently, a life lesson. I wish I could go back a few years and say, is I had an employee that was like continually underperforming, and they were a direct report for a period of time. And we played the game of putting them in different roles within the business to try to figure out like what's going to suit them. But it got to a point where it was like, okay, this is kind of the last role. And I did not do what I should have done. And that was kind of constantly continue to create with them and give them feedback, because the feedback I was going to give them was not so great. Right. And nobody loves to like give tough feedback. And so I started to just like not have the communication that I should have had. And when you don't do that, you end up getting this vein of negativity that would spread, and then things spread to a few people, and then ultimately ends up with that person leaving the company, which was great, but the collateral damage that was created was a huge distraction to deal with. And so preventing that or proactively leading your team, it starts with like daily communication with your direct reports. Like, you guys should always be on the same page. Weekly communication with uh, key managers in the business that maybe aren't a direct report. Monthly communication with what I would call key employees. I mean, you just know there's certain people. The doorman could be a key employee. If like that person is in charge of everybody coming in and out of your hotel or whatever. So they're knowing who people are really important doesn't who cares where the hierarchy is? And sometimes there's just those key, and maybe they're not key, but they're key for you. They're like, maybe it's like that person is somebody you're supposed to mentor and pour into as well. Like I have, you could have employees like that as well. Maybe they're not key, but they're also, they are deserving of your time. And then the other thing is having, like, we have a monthly town hall where we get to, talk about the vision, the mission, the values, like what's going on. And it's kind of a free forum for people to communicate. And this is something, as a result of some of the issues that we've had. We've now had probably 8 town halls, and the culture has just skyrocketed in terms of, the excitement, the esprit de corps. But it really goes back to fundamentals, and that's communication. And sometimes you can't read the label when you're inside the jar. And so, because you're all shaken up and you're like, oh, everything's going crazy, and you're not communicating the way that you need to communicate. And so, going back to fundamentals, really making sure the communication lines are really open and established, has really allowed our team to embrace this vision of what AI means, where Capturely is perfectly positioned to take full advantage of this and create a really cool disruptive company that can really democratize photography for all.
Vision and communication. I love how succinct that is in terms of how you've helped lead through change. I'll echo, especially the communication piece, Rob. In psychology, there's this thing called personal fable. We all have them. It's those things in our head where we're like, oh yeah, that's true for that person, but I'm different. I'm unique. I'm special. That won't happen to me, kind of stuff. A lot of us tend to have that when we're adolescents. Oh, it's okay for me to go really fast in my sports car as a teenager because I'm not going to have a wreck. Unlike Bobby. Like, now Bobby, if he does it, of course he's going to have a wreck, kind of stuff. When it comes to communication, I feel like even as adults, a lot of us have personal fables around it. And here's what I mean by that. I feel like if we asked most everybody, they'll be like, yeah, I think I'm a great communicator. But if you ask people around them, all of us, even people that have communication degrees, it's one of those areas that can always be better, regardless of how good you think you are at communicating, whether it's written or oral communication. And I love that you laid out, like, if you aren't having daily with your daily reports, check-ins to make sure that there's alignment and clarity on the work that needs to be done and how it needs to be done. If you're not having weekly with your leaders, if you aren't having monthly or quarterly strategic sessions, then you'll find out just how quickly you're playing the telephone game. I'm sure you probably played this as a kid, where you say a message to the first person, it's like a really long message. By the time you get to the last person in line, it's a totally different message. That's what you can end up with when you aren't communicating on a regular schedule. And I'll tell you, Rob, one of the areas where I've seen this, particularly it can happen for, I think, remote or asynchronous type teams, is that sometimes there can be a push to have fewer live meetings together, right? And I totally get that, because we've come from a place where, like, a lot of us experience this, like, are we really having this meeting? This could have been an email, or this could have been an update, okay? And so I don't want to downplay that. That's 100% true. But sometimes it feels like we may have gone the opposite direction of not having enough of specific types of meetings that have very specific outcomes and specific operations in the business, to make sure that every single person is operating smoothly within their role, focused on the correct priorities, that there aren't any details related to a project or an internal operation that's falling through the cracks. And so it's finding, I believe, when it comes to communication, this happy medium of, yes, in the past, we probably over-meetinged ourselves to death on certain types things, but also making sure we don't go full tilt the other direction of, just doing direct message type, whether it's in Microsoft Teams or Slack or things like that. There absolutely are times where it needs to be part of your structure to function well and everyone to have clarity and deliver well for clients, to have those types of meetings where there's clear, consistent communication. And to your point, not even stepping aside from day-to-day operations, the vision of the company, the direction. A psychologist once told me when I was first getting started that all behavior is communication. And that goes also for a lack of communication. A lack of communication communicates to people. And what you shared was, if I'm not communicating a vision to my creatives, they're pretty creative in terms of the catastrophizing and the worst case scenarios that they are going to put in their own heads if there's not a a source of communication saying, this is the direction we're heading. This is the target. I want you to hear me loud and clear. Are there going to be changes? Yes, here's what they are. But also, this does not mean that your job is in jeopardy. You will be using AI to support the work that you do. Like, it feels like so many companies are not communicating with clarity. And right now, it's just kind of the Wild West in terms of they may have team members that are using AI for certain things that leaders aren't even aware of, and things that are getting shipped to partners that may have been developed by AI without even knowing it. It feels like this communication piece and that it being tied to the vision is so important, not only in terms of the internal operations and shipping really good quality product and delivering on our promises for customers, but it also feels like it's such an essential piece to help bring the temperature down in terms of the anxiety, the worry, the uncertainty that a lot of people may feel if there's a gap, if there's a vacuum where there's not communication on, here's our vision and our strategy for what AI is going to mean for this company moving forward, that folks are going to fill that void. They're going to fill that vacuum. And to your point, as a species, we tend to not, when there's a vacuum, we tend to not fill it with good things, good positive things like, yeah, it's all going to be just fine. This is going to make things better. We tend to go the other direction. And so leaders having a clearly formulated communication, and sometimes that communication strategy is saying, I bet in your case, I'd love to hear from you, is this is what I know so far. 5 years out, I don't know yet. We'll talk about that together when we get there. But here's what our vision is for this next year or two. Here's the path forward and the change that we're going to go through. And so I don't want leaders to think like you have to have everything mapped out for like the next 5 to 10 years. My goodness, things are changing too quickly. But there needs to be clear communication as to what things are looking like over the next year and supporting people and understanding that and in their roles. And I love that you've laid it out and said, vision number one, you got to get clear on that because you can't communicate with clarity until your vision's clear. And then make sure you have clear lines of communication with your folks to hear from them, to share with them, this is the direction we're heading, and here's what it's going to look like as a company. I think that's great advice.
Yeah, and the vision that I articulated to you about, the Canva photography agentic, moving up the complexity chain, a whole, a fully functioning agentic photographer, right? To the point someday it's doing the wedding photos, the whole 9 yards. That wasn't like, oh, one day, it was painful to get to a place of this amount like of clarity. But now we have clarity. I mean, we are crystal clear. But to your point you brought up, which is so important, it is you sometimes you might only know enough to communicate what's going to happen the next 5 days. And so you just have to lean into whatever you do know. You do have to give your team as much as you can. I've learned that. I've learned it the hard way. Because even while this vision was starting to take hold, and for us to kind of be able to the clouds to clear and for us to see this, um, people wanted it from me very like they wanted it, and I just I didn't have it yet. Like I didn't like I it's hard to give what you don't have. Um, and I can even remember, a year ago, like, I didn't have it even a year ago at this time. I knew we wanted to continue to, expand our tech-enabled service, our tech-enabled photography service, right, where a photographer jumps on your phone, does your headshot. Knew we wanted to expand it, lots of opportunity, companies are signing on, things are great, but it was like, what's more, what's next, and so it was being constantly pushed by one of my senior managers, uh, to communicate. He was pulling it from me, and God bless him for doing it. It was I do appreciate it because it was helping me to have good form as a leader. Brene Brown has great like dare to dare to lead, and we're so quick to like I've read all these books, but then it's like and then I forget them and I do the mistakes and then I look back and I go, why didn't I like remember that? And so I think always as leaders, we always need to be, learning. We need to be constantly, and we need to be going back through our notes, and continuing to refine ourselves. And so, but communication, but kind of bringing this back full circle, you have to communicate, and even communicating, I don't know, is more than it's the authenticity that allows people to like relax. Because I look at that, you talked about the meetings. It's almost like the connective tissue in the body. It's not whatever the purpose of the meeting is, right? We got to get more sales. We got to get, we got to develop this technology. This is a product meeting. This is a marketing meeting, right? Those are like the organs and different pieces. But it's like the connective tissue is like, hey, how's your dad? Like, what's going on with him? I heard he was sick. Hey, I'm sorry to hear that your kid's sick. Like, is there anything I can do? Hey, how'd you like that coffee I just shipped you on Amazon? I know my wife and I love it. It's amazing, right? It's like genuinely having human relationship with other people. And so, what I've found is routine, regular communication is the key to creating what you kind of I call it lean communication, where it's like necessary communication, it's good communication, um, but it's not where people are just like hanging out all day long and being unproductive because businesses, especially when they're small like us and scrappy and bootstrapped, we don't last very long if we just hang around and shoot the shit all day.
You talk about the importance of touch base, and I'm glad that you talked about it. It's not always the nuts and bolts, it's the caring for each other. And to me, that's one of my predictions around the future of work is that we're gonna see a push toward IRL in real life, kind of stuff. And that is like, even though you may have the ability like to listen to a concert at home, that there's gonna be still some people that are like, I'd actually go like to watch the show or actually go to the game, kind of stuff for the human authenticity aspect. And I think that what you're talking about there is that, people will still want to do that. They want you to ask about their family. They want that real human touch when you're showing up to work and know that people care. And I love the term you use, the connective tissue, that sometimes that's just as important in a meeting as the nuts and bolts of getting to the brass tacks of what has to get shipped and delivered for a customer, right? And I think sometimes it still is really easy for us to kind of poo-poo that stuff or say that it's not important. But when the fact of the matter is, it matters more now than ever, and it'll only become even more important the more digital we become, that we still have these IRL experiences together to check in on one another, that there really is a sense of community and caring and belonging and cohesion in the work that you're doing together, because that's when the best work and the game-changing things in the world get created. It doesn't come whenever people are disgruntled with each other, or don't enjoy each other's company. That inspiration, that spark, making things come to life is when you have really good cohesiveness and connection within teams. So I'm glad that you reiterated that.
We even created a channel called the Take Five channel where it's kind of like it would be like the company lunchroom, so everybody can kind of just post whatever. And of course, creatives take five, right? Like, everybody we're taking five. But it's really fun to see what's going on, and what's neat too is most of our team is U.S. based, but we have a handful of folks that are international. And recently there was huge tsunamis and hurricanes in the Philippines, and so people are reaching out to our counterparts over there. One of our folks in India, she had a terrible flood, and so these are people that we haven't even like been able to get together in real life yet. But I mean, there's this bond of connection. I mean, we've worked together now for a couple of years with these individuals, and so you can get a lot through virtual. It will never be as good as in real life. We do. David and I work in the same office. My CTO and I, and man, it is so fun when we get like employees to like we just had our head of customer success. He was here for the week. And so he was working out of our office. He actually lives in Spain. But it was so cool to have him here in Indy for a week and just being able to have that in real life experience. And so those definitely are going to continue to be a premium moving forward, and certainly something that we will definitely cherish at Capturally.
Yeah, we have a globally distributed team also. Most everyone works from home. And so one of the ways we do it, we use Slack for a lot of our communication. So we actually have a channel called Life Wheel. So your Take Five is kind of like our Life Wheel, where folks will just post pictures of like, take a look at my pets, what they're doing in my office today. Or, whenever we went trick-or-treating for Halloween, take a picture of the family, to show what the Halloween experience is. And it helps build that connective tissue, even if you can't be together physically in the same location, there's still ways that you can do that remotely and asynchronously, and to not overlook those things. They really are important in order for people to feel fulfillment feel fulfilled, in order for there to be a good feeling of the culture and the cohesion that everyone has together. So I love those recommendations. Rob, we knew that this time was going to go by quickly. I've got to ask you this question before we get ready to wrap things up today. We've covered a lot, probably even more than what you're expecting, which is always fun. But was there something you wanted to cover today, or that you thought I'd ask that I haven't so far?
That's a great question. No, I think you've nailed it. I can't think of something.
How about maybe this one then? How about some departing words of wisdom? So as we kind of just recap the episode, what would be some of the final words that you'd want to share with leaders who maybe have been going through the same tribulations, changes, evolutions, pivots, and things that you have successfully navigated with you and your team at Capturely? What would be some words you want to share with them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is lead with humility and authenticity. We're only as good as the sum of the parts as a company. And if we lean into people, you build you don't build businesses, you build people, and then people build businesses. And so, in this world where of extreme transparency, it's important to just show up as your authentic, humble self. And if you're not humble, you will get humbled. The great humbling will come for all of us. So, and continue to lean into learning, listening to this podcast, reading different kinds of texts. Like, the more that you need to have a sharp saw. And so you need to do the things that help you sharpen it. For me, I have a daily Bible reading that I do. I also have quarterly reading that I do. And so I highly recommend that people do things like that. And even in the midst of that, it's easy to fall out of routine. Consistency will trump uh, uh, a great moment anytime. So, stay consistent in the habits that you have as a company, in your communication, and in your own personal development.
That's a perfect capstone on today's episode. So as we get ready to depart here, follow Rob's words and advice there. Great recommendation for leaders. Then as we wrap up, also give him a follow on LinkedIn, Rob Eyler. Also go check out Capturely. Rob, any other ways for folks to get in touch with you, or things they should check out to learn about you and Capturely, the company?
Sure. We love sharing what it is that we do with the world. And, one thing that we're willing to do for your listeners is anybody who would like to have a free headshot session, we're happy to give that away. They just need to use PFN as the code, and they can simply go to our website and they can book a session right there, and under the payment, put in the PFN code, and they'll get a free session so they can see if it's right for their team. And if it's just something where they needed it for themselves because they're between jobs, or they're just curious, happy to give it away, and offer that to your listeners. So I really appreciate you having me on today.
Well, thank you. That is an incredible gift for everybody out there. So be on the lookout for that. We'll make sure that that's captured not only here in the episode, but we'll capture it in the notes as well to make it really easy and convenient. It doesn't get any better than that, folks. If you've been on the fence about getting that professional headshot done that shows you authentically the way that you are, here's your chance through Capturely. Rob, thank you to you for coming on the show and sharing all these interesting tidbits and wisdom with our listeners today.
No, appreciate you, Jason. Thank you.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Working Forward. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Until next time, here's to building tomorrow today.